Back in October of last year, I got a call from the head of the English department at Harding University. It was very late, and I didn't know the guy, never met him. But he wanted to know if I'd be willing to teach a Comp 1 and Comp 2 English class to students at Harding. I really didn't want to. I hadn't taught English in 30 years. And I was a little surprised to hear that people were still teaching English, quite frankly. I don't hear it spoken very often, and I didn't just kind of wondered about that. I've read too many texts from my grandchildren who don't speak English or write English. They have all these little things because it's just BC, and they have BTW when they want to say by the way, which really offends me greatly. But anyway, I thought, well, no, why not? Now, I want to tell the story slowly enough that you understand I did not have any ulterior motives of any kind, spiritual or otherwise, when I said, yeah, I guess I'd do that. So I did. The person who was supposed to teach those classes had made some, I don't know what happened, but for some reason they had to drop out within about 10 days of school starting. So I didn't have any books. I didn't have anything. So the guy who I had now met, John Singleton, who was the chairman of the department, he said, well, he said, somebody told me that you've written a lot of books. And I said, well, yeah. And he said, well, use one of those. Okay. So I had a whole bunch of copies of Oak Trees and Angels. I must have had maybe 50, 60 copies. So I had 10 kids in the class, as it turned out. And I gave each of them a copy of Oak Trees and Angels. I said, read this. Out of the 10 that I had, 7 were from the United States, but none of them were from Arkansas. I had 1 from El Salvador, 1 from Spain, and 1 from Portugal. English was a second language. And this is just by way of interest. You know what? They turned out to be better students in English than the kids who were raised in this country. That's the truth. You know why? They learned it as a second language, so they knew the rules. No, they learned the rules of English. Well, the kids who are raised in it don't know the rules. Nobody's ever taught them the rules of English. And so they turned out, every one of them turned out to be a better student than the kids that had gone to high school in this country. I was amazed at what they didn't know. Anyway, those of you who may be familiar, that book, Oak Trees and Angels, is full of stories. That's really all it is. About 15, 20 stories. I don't know, remember how many there are. So they read those stories. Obviously, you know me, the story. All of my stories have a moral, spiritual application, which they weren't used to. But one of the first things I did was I told them, I said, I want you to read this story. The class met on Tuesdays and Thursdays. On Tuesday, I said, read this story. On Thursday, I'm going to give you a quiz over it. So I gave them a quiz, and they didn't do very well. They didn't. Now, this would be interesting, I hope, to you, and it's a part of the story. So I said, now I'm going to read the story to you, and then I'm going to give you another quiz. And they did exponentially better after they heard me read the story than when they read it themselves. to move along, they got used to me telling them stories. Sometimes just off the cuff, I just say, it reminds me of blah, blah, blah. And so every day when class met, the first thing when they came in, they'd say, "Are you going to tell a story today?" These are 19-year-old kids. They're not 6. You cannot imagine. They sat like children in front of my desk listening to me tell them a story. You might learn something important from this. No, they were just absolutely enraptured. They were glued every day. You going to tell a story today? One of the boys, the boy from Spain, his name was Hugo Silva. He was 6'8". He's on a full basketball scholarship there. Probably weighs 260 pounds. He's really big. And he was a good student, nice kid. Good manners, never rude, never sulky, sour. A nice kid, good student. But I learned from his papers that he was an atheist. One of the papers that I assigned was, I want you to write a paper that tells me what you believe about God, what you believe about life, what you believe about death. And then you have to tell me the reasons why you believe what you believe. I had to write a paper on that. And he wrote a good paper. I gave him an A on it. But it was full of godless thought. It was. I mean, I don't grade kids on, I grade on how well they've written it. So he got an A on it. At the bottom of his paper, I wrote a note. And I said, I call all of my students either Mr. or Miss. I never call them by their first names. I said, "Mr. Silva, this is a good paper. I know that you know that I disagree with almost everything you've written. When you come back from the Christmas holidays, it was right at the end of the semester, I would like to talk to you about these things." So, now remember, I wasn't even sure if I wanted to teach this class. And I did not tell you, after about 4 weeks, I told Fran, I don't know what I was thinking. Oh, this is awful. Why did I ever think I wanted to do this again? And it wasn't just the classes, but every class was a new day for me. I didn't have any previous class preparations. And then it was grading papers, reading papers after papers after papers. It's just, oh, I thought, what was I thinking about? And I want to insert and emphasize, I did not see this as an opportunity. That's important. I did not see this as an opportunity. And all I could think about was how blessed I was going to be when it was over. So, on the day of the final, all of the kids finished. And I noticed Mr. Silva, I go like that because that's where he sat, had finished his paper, but he just stayed there. He stayed till everybody left. And he came down and he handed me his paper. And I don't have to look up that sharply at very many people, but he's here, and I'm down here, and he says, "Mr. Smith, I want you to know that I'm really anxious about talking to you when I come back from the Christmas break." He said, "You've lived a long time, Mr. Smith, and you've read a lot of books. I can tell. You've read hundreds of books. You're really a smart guy." And he said, "As you know, I love those stories you tell. He said, you know that story you told about that girl on the airplane, little girl that had the fussy baby? I said, yeah, I remember that. And he said, you got out of your comfort zone. He said, Mr. Smith, I was listening. And you asked that little girl if she would let you hold her baby. And he said, I almost cried. He said, I want to be like that. That's the kind of person I want to be. And that story you told about the boy during World War II who came to your school, and he was a German boy and everybody hated him. And you became his friend and you befriended him and actually even went to his house. He said, I want to be like that. I just admire that. And that's the kind of person that I want to be. So he handed me his paper and I put it in the stack. And again, if you could see, he's standing there and he stuck out his hand. He wanted to shake hands with me. And he said, Mr. Smith, I promise you that when I get back, I will email you and we're going to get together and talk. Because, he said, I can see that the things you do and the kind of person you are is tied to your faith. I can see that. I don't have any faith. I don't believe the things you believe. And I'm wondering, can I ever become the kind of person that I really want to be if I don't have any faith? So I said, well, I'll look forward to hearing from you when you get back. And you might not. Anyway, he turned and he walked out. This was a lecture hall, and it's like this, and the seats are all elevated. He walked out the door. And in about a minute, he came back. And he walked up to me and he said, could I give you a hug? Oh, Lord, have mercy on us. And he's got tears on his face. He's 6'8". He's a giant. I've never hugged anybody that big before. I thought he was going to break every bone in my body. I mean, this wasn't one of those, this was a sincere hug. And I'm just tell you that. And it all began when a guy that I had never met called me and asked me if I wanted to teach English comp. And I'm trying to impress upon you that those kinds of things are happening in your life all the time. I never heard of Hugo Silva. I had no idea what was going on when this guy called me and asked me to teach English comp. I had no idea. And I'm trying to help all of us to understand that this whole thing, that the topic about perfecting holiness is tied to these kinds of stories. Listen to me. Because God wasn't just doing something for Hugo Silva, he was doing something for me. He was helping me to perfect holiness. You see that? This wasn't just about Hugo Silva. This was about me. And so I'm trying to help you to understand that there is so much more to your life than you ever suspected. There is so much more to your life that you ever suspected. And that God is at work in this world, and he's at work in you to benefit other people and to benefit yourself. And this is the heart of what we call evangelism. You don't have to go to Nigeria to find lost people. I hope you understand that. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I'm saying there are lost people all around you. And God finds ways of getting us involved with people that we never knew about. And in the end, we pour some Holy Spirit into them. And the Holy Spirit is at work in us. And every now and then, I wonder, I'm sure you do, am I doing much good in this world? Am I doing any good? And sometimes the Holy Spirit at night when I go to bed and praying and saying, I don't know what I accomplished today. And he says, John, you did all right today. You did okay today. I want you to know I was proud of you. You never know. You never know. And so it's been 3 weeks ago now. He's back. Hugo's back and came to the house, had dinner. Fran fixed dinner for him. You talk about somebody that can eat. Whoa, let me tell you something. You better get your groceries and stored up. But that boy can put it away. He doesn't even know that he's eating is normal for him. But he and I studied the Bible for 2 hours after we got through eating. I told him, I said, no, I'm going to be gone next Sunday today. He said, oh, no. So I want you to know that Hugo Silva is not very fond of you folks because he really wanted to study the Bible today, and I'm going to be here talking to you all. But God has his ways. Well, that's the lesson for this. I hope it has value to you. I mean, personal value. And I don't care how old you are or how young you are. Every day, you make a decision to either drink the water or prime the pump. Every day. Every one of you. I don't care who you are. I don't care where you work. I don't care where you live. Every day. Every morning. That's the decision. God bless you. It's 10 minutes till, start again at 5 after. That'll give you plenty of time. I'm going by that clock back there. That may be New York time.